All right, let's get right into it. When we think about automation, our minds usually jump to the simple stuff, right? Clicking a button, typing some text. But what happens when a task needs, well, a human touch? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how automation tools can tackle those really tricky, seemingly unautomatable parts of the user interface. So, how do you program a robot to do something like, I don't know, drag a price slider to just the right spot? Or copy paste something using a keyboard shortcut? Yeah, your basic click here or type that commands, they're just not going to cut it. These actions feel really intuitive to us, but behind them is a logic that we can absolutely 100% automate. So let's kick things off with our first big challenge, the UI slider. You've seen these things everywhere, especially on shopping sites when you're setting a price range. For an automation script, though, this little guy is a surprisingly tough puzzle to solve.
Okay, so here's the real problem. A normal drag and drop command is pretty simple. It needs a source element and a target element. You drag item A to location B. But with a slider, you've got the source, that's the handle you grab, but where's the target? It could be literally anywhere along that track. There's no specific element to drop it onto, and that's what completely stumps basic automation.
And this is where the secret sauce comes in. The solution isn't to look for a target element at all. It's to start thinking like a map maker. See, every single pixel on a web page has a location, a specific set of X and Y coordinates. And the magic is automation tools can interact with locations, not just visible elements. So check out this three-step logic. It's actually pretty simple. First, you use a command, something like getLocation, to figure out the slider's current X and Y coordinates. Step 2, you decide how far you want to move it. We call this the offset. Let's say 100 pixels to the right. And finally, step 3, you use a special command, drag and drop by. You just give it the slider handle and tell it how far to move on the X and Y axis. You see the difference? It's not dragging to a target, it's dragging by a certain distance. So let's see what that actually looks like. Imagine our script finds the slider handle at an X coordinate of 58. We tell it to drag it by an offset of 100 pixels horizontally. After the command runs, we check its location again, and boom, now it's at an X coordinate of 157. It worked perfectly. We moved the element precisely without ever needing a target to drop it on. And what if you want to move it back to the left? It's super simple. You just use a negative value. An offset of negative 100 on the x-axis just moves it right back in the opposite direction. Easy. All right, so we've got the mouse under control. Let's move on to our next challenge and see how these ideas build on each other. What about the keyboard? I'm talking about those multi-key shortcuts that we use constantly without even thinking about it. Now, this is a whole different kind of problem. I mean, telling a script to type the letter C is easy, but telling it to press and hold down the control key, then press C at the same time, and then let go of both? That needs a totally different approach. Well, the solution is actually pretty cool. It comes from making the script simulate what our fingers physically do. The trick isn't to send some magical Control+C command. No, it's about breaking it down into its physical parts. There's a command for pressing a key down and a separate command for letting it go. So let's take Select All or Control+A as an example. Here's how it works. First, the script executes a key down command on the control key. So now, in the computer's mind, that key is being held down. Then, while it's held, it sends the A key. And finally, it executes a key up command on the control key, which releases it. The computer sees this sequence of events and interprets it exactly as if a person had just hit the shortcut. And this is where it gets really powerful. Once you have these simple building blocks, you can chain them together to create some seriously complex workflows. Like here, we're automating a full copy and paste job. First select all with Control+A, then copy it with Control+C. We can even simulate pressing the Tab key to jump to the next input field. And finally, paste it all with Control+V. 4 totally distinct shortcuts, all built from those simple key down and key up commands. So, we figured out precise mouse movements, and we've cracked complex keyboard shortcuts. Now let's see what happens when we combine these powers to solve a really common practical problem. So, how do you open a link in a new tab without right-clicking? You hold down the Control key and you click the link, right? Well, we can automate that exact sequence. The script performs a key down on the Control key. While that key is being held, it does a standard click on the link. Then, it does a key up to release the control key, and the browser responds just like it would for you or me by opening that link in a brand new tab. Okay, so after tackling sliders and shortcuts, what are the big ideas here? What are the key things you should walk away with? It really just boils down to two core principles for thinking about this kind of advanced automation.
First, you've got to think in coordinates. Whenever a direct interaction with an element isn't working, just remember that the entire screen is a grid. Any point is reachable with a simple XY offset. Second, simulate physical actions. Don't think copy. Think press Control down, press C, release Control. When you break complex actions into these tiny physical steps, pretty much anything becomes automatable.
This really changes how you look at a user interface. It's not just a bunch of buttons and text fields anymore. It's a landscape of coordinates and a series of physical actions waiting to happen. So the next time you're doing some routine task on your computer, ask yourself, what's the real logic going on underneath? Because once you see it that way, you start to realize just about anything can be automated.